In this video, I'm going to show you how to model, texture, light, and render crypto animations in Blender3D. Whether you're a designer in the industry, starting your own project, or just want to make some shiny NFTs, I hope you glean some nourishing nuggets of knowledge from this video. Let's jump in. If you're part of the Patreon, you can download the finished product straight from there. Otherwise, we'll work through it together. Okay, so once you've got Blender open, you want to open a new Blender file by pressing File, New, General, or you can just delete the default cube. We want to add in a cylinder first, so if you just press Shift-A, Mesh, Cylinder. We're going to choose 256 vertices down here. Make sure you set this before you move the cylinder at all, because after you move it, you can't set this option anymore. So let's click off. Let's select our object and press S to scale it. We want to scale it in the Z axis down like this, so it's more of a coin shape. Now let's press R to rotate it on the X axis, type in 90 on your keyboard. We're going to be adding a mirror modifier to this object. So something that we want to do first is to press Shift to come into edit mode on this object, press Ctrl R to add a edge loop, and this yellow line is where it's going to add it. So if you click and then press Escape, it will add it in the center here. Now we want to delete half of the object because we're about to add a mirror modifier. So if you press on your numpad 1 or 3, it will toggle between front and side view. So we're going to come to side view here by pressing 3. We're going to hold Z and we're going to go into wireframe mode. First of all, we want to deselect this edge loop that we had selected by clicking off. Press B to box select. And then we're going to drag and select half of this coin. Now we press delete and vertices. And let's come back into solid view by holding Z. Now we're going to add our mirror modifier. So if we make sure we're back in object mode here, go to modifiers, add modifier, mirror. We want to mirror on the Z axis. So make sure Z is selected here. And there we go, we've mirrored our mesh. Now anything we do to this side of the coin is going to automatically be done to the other side. So let's go to the face select and let's add some details to the face of our coin. So press E to extrude and then right click or press escape to cancel the extrude, but we have still duplicated that face. So now we can press S and scale it down like this. Now let's press E again and extrude inwards. Let's press E again, cancel it, scale down. And we're going to create a little inner loop here by pressing E to extrude outwards. E again, cancel, scale down, and then E again. Something like that. Let's say we want to make this inner ring bigger after we've done this. Well, you can just hold Alt, Shift, and select these edge loops and scale it up again. And if we look at the other side of our coin, you can see it's done the exact same thing. Something you should remember to do regularly is to press Ctrl A in object mode and make sure you apply your scale. I would normally apply all transforms, but because we've got the mirror modifier on, we cannot apply them all right now. So just apply scale. Next, we're going to add some ridges to our coin. This is a little bit fiddly, but I'll talk you through it. So you want to go into edit mode and choose face select. Hold Alt and click to select the edge loop. Switch to edge select and hold Alt, click these edge loops to deselect them. Now we're going to press F3 and we're going to search for checker deselect, which will deselect every other edge loop. And now we can just press S and we can scale this to create some ridges. I think about there. Next, we're going to add some bevels to some of our edges. So let's hold Alt and Shift so that we can select multiple edge loops. Let's select this edge loop, this edge loop, this edge loop, pretty much all of these. Once we've got them all selected, press Ctrl B, and you can see by dragging, we can create a bevel. And by using the mouse wheel, we can increase the number of subdivisions in our bevel. I'll just get closer to show you that. So there's our bevel, and then if we use the mouse wheel, we can increase the number of faces, the number of subdivisions in our bevel. So we're going to take it pretty easy. We're just going to maybe do 2 subdivisions in there and make it pretty small, something like that. And that just allows the light later on to reflect much more nicely off of those rounded corners. You can already see it in the viewport render. The light here reflects a bit more nicely there. Next, we want to bring in our logo. So you want to grab an SVG or an image of your logo. I'm going to show you how to do it with both. So if you come to a site like cryptologos.cc, you can find a bunch of logos for different crypto projects. I'm just going to choose Bitcoin, and you can download the SVG here, or you can download the image. Once you've done that, just come back to Blender, File, Import SVG, and select your SVG here and import. You might get some unwanted stuff here with your SVG. We only want this B here, so we're going to click the outer circle and delete it, and then we have just our logo here. You can see over here the origin point is way off, so to reset that, we're going to press F3, type in origin, and choose origin to geometry, which does what it says on the tin, just puts the origin where the geometry is. Now we're going to correct the rotation a little. So I'm going to press RZ and just straighten it up, RX, and rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. Now if you press Alt-G, that will reset this object to the center of your viewport, like so. Now let's press G to move it, press Y, and bring it out in front of the coin. We want to add some thickness to this, because right now it is just a plane. So if you press Add Modifier, Solidify, you can see it's now added some thickness. And let's increase that a bit. And then move it by pressing G into the coin. So it's touching the coin. And you can see these nasty planes on the side here. We don't like that. So let's come to the curve panel here and increase the resolution preview to the max, which is 64, and make sure you do it also for the render. Otherwise it won't appear in your render. Now let's scale up this logo, something like that, and move it so it's a bit more centered. Now we cannot just add this logo to the coin mesh and hope that it just mirrors on the other side. The reason being that the logo will be backwards. So instead, we will just have to duplicate the coin by pressing Shift D, press Y to move it, and then let's flip it, pressing S to scale, press X to scale on the x-axis, and then type -1. And then let's fix the rotation by pressing R and then Y. And then move it. Now, if you wanted to add an image instead, if you don't have an SVG of the logo, you only have an image, you'll have to go to Edit, Preferences, and search for an add-on called Import Images as Planes, and select this checkmark box to download it. Once you've done that, you go to File, Import, Images as Planes. You would then import your image and position it just like we have done here. And make sure the image has transparency. So that is the modeling process complete. Next, we're going to move on to materials. Just to mention, we're using the Eevee renderer here. So if you come to the Render Properties tab, you want to make sure Eevee is selected. So we're going to move over to the Material Shading tab, which is up here on the top right. So let's click that. And let's go down to our Materials tab here. Let's click on the coin. Let's do the coin first. Press New to generate a new material. Now we want to change the base color. I'm going to come back to this web page, cryptologos.cc, and I've got a color picker extension for Chrome. However, you can just use a photo editor or however you want to get the color. I'm going to click, copy the hex code, come back to Blender, click base color, paste the hex code in, and you can see that is looking nice. We want to change the material to be more metallic because coins tend to be quite metallic. And we want to decrease the roughness, which will make it look a bit more shiny. So I've changed the metallic to 0.6 and I've changed the roughness to 0.2. But you can play around with these values until you get a result that you like. Next, we're going to click on our Bitcoin material. I'm going to press Use Nodes. Do the same here. We're going to leave it as the white color, but we're going to make it pure white. metallic to 0.6, roughness to 0.2. Now this inner ring on the coin, we want to be using a different material. So to do that, we're going to select our coin, press Tab to enter edit mode, come to face select, and we're going to select all of these edge loops. Now, because we have the bevel, we're going to make sure that we select all of the loops in the bevel. We're going to select one of the edges here, press the delete key to really zoom in here, and hold Alt and Shift to select multiple edge loops. Just going to select all of these. That'll do. And now, if we click New Material, press New, and we press Assign, it's going to assign this new white material just to this ring. And we're going to go here and increase the metallic again, and decrease the roughness again. Very nice. And there you can see how our bevel is reflecting the light very nicely. Now let's name our materials. Let's just call this one ring, and let's call this one main. And we've got some of these polygon issues again, so we're going to shade smooth. So we're going to select that ring loop, F3, shade smooth. Have a look again, looks better now. Do the same on this side. Select the loop, F3, shade smooth, come back to material mode, and again, it's looking better. I'm just going to repeat this process for everywhere that I see the problem. So I can see this problem here. If you see these lines, we want to get rid of those. So I'm going to shade smooth, and you can see it looks a little odd, and that's because of these zigzags. So to fix that, we're going to press Ctrl R to add an edge loop, and we're going to drag it all the way to the top here. I'm also going to add another edge loop and drag it all the way to the bottom. And there we go. That looks much better now. So we're going to move on to lighting now. One way to add the lighting would be to press Shift A and add in some lights like this. We're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to use HDRI lighting. Sounds complicated, it's actually kind of easier. All it means is that instead of using these light objects to add light to our scene, we're going to use a single texture which will describe the light. And that texture will kind of be, if you imagine it being wrapped around a sphere and then projected in towards your scene, that's kind of what's happening. So there are loads of places you can grab HDRIs. This site called Polyhaven offers HDRIs that are free for commercial use. So here you can see the HDRI, and below it's showing how your object would look once the HDRI lighting has been applied. And I'll post a link to this website in the description. So to add the HDRI lighting, we want to open up a new window by dragging the top right corner like this. Let's go to the shader editor. And here you can see the node setup, or the shader editor for our coin. What we want to do is select this drop down and choose world instead. And now we have the nodes, or the shader, that is for our world instead of our object. So let's press Shift A to add a new node, press search, and type environment texture, and drop this node down. Now we're going to press open, and we're going to find our texture. And we're going to plug this color into the background node. And now if we come to our rendered view on the top right, you can actually see the HDRI map if we rotate the viewport around. Now, we want this lighting, but we don't actually want to see this texture in the background. So to disable that, we're going to go to our render tab, we're going to come down to film, and we're going to check on transparent. You can control the strength of the lighting using this strength value. I'm just going to leave it at 1 for now. Now I'm going to go back to the materials for a second, because I think this material looks too perfect. This is a design choice. If you want your material to look very perfect, then you don't have to do this. But I'm just going to add some imperfections to the surface to make it look a bit more real. So if I click on my coin, choose this object in the shader tab and switch back to object view. And now we have our node set up for our coin. And I'm going to add in an imperfection map. So if you press Shift A, search, add an image texture node, press open. Now I have an imperfection map texture here. I'll post a link in the description where you can download this. But if you open that, and I'm just going to plug the color into the roughness. And you can see, whoa, that's done some interesting stuff. You can see these kind of stains. So if I just show you what this texture looks like, it's kind of lots of fingerprints, smudges, things like that. And that's what you can see now on the surface. Now maybe we want these markings to be smaller. So let's add some more nodes in here to modify the scale. So I'm going to add in a mapping node and a texture coordinates node. I'm going to plug the generated option into the vector option of the mapping. I'll just come a little closer for you here. So I've got the texture coordinate node and the mapping node. I've plugged the generated option into the vector option for mapping. And I'm going to plug this vector into the vector option for the imperfection map. Now, if we change the location, you can see the texture moving around. So we're just changing the sort of position of the texture. If we want the texture to be smaller, we can change the scale. So I've changed it to 5 instead of 1, and you can see each sort of finger mark is now much smaller. Now we want to control the strength of this imperfections. So to do that, we're going to add in an RGB curves node, plug it in between those two nodes. And now we can add some handles on here. And just tweak it to how we like it. And I'm also going to bump the size back up to 2 instead of 5 because 5 was a little small. So let's leave it like that for now. We can probably come back and change that in the future if we don't like it. We also want to add this to the ring. So let's highlight all of those nodes. Come back to our materials panel, click ring, and you can see now we have the nodes for our ring. Press Ctrl V, and if it didn't copy correctly, just right click and press copy instead of pressing Ctrl C. Plug the color into the roughness, and now we have the texture applied to our ring as well. And let's do the same to the Bitcoin logo. So I'm going to click on our logo, go into the material, Ctrl V, and plug again the color into roughness. And that will apply to the back one as well, because they share the same material. So that is the lighting and materials done. Next, we're going to move on to the animation and camera work. So if you don't have a camera in your scene, you should do, because I think by default there will be one there. But if you don't, press Shift A and click camera here. Once you have one, press 0 on the numpad. And this is now showing us what our camera can see right now. I'm going to press N, and under view, I'm going to press camera to view. Now this means we can just move around the viewport like we would normally, and this is going to move our camera with us. For the first shot, I just want to have a front-on shot with the Bitcoin spinning. So to make sure our camera is fully front-on, I'm just going to come out of our camera view by pressing 0 again on the numpad. Click on our camera here, and let's go to the object panel, and let's set the location to 0 on the X, 0 on the Z, and leave the Y where it is. Let's change the rotation in the X to 90, rotation in the Y to 0, rotation in Z to 0. And now if we press 0 again, we can see it's straight on, and we can just tweak the Y rotation to move the camera in or out. Now let's animate our coin. Now you'll notice if I try to rotate my coin here, the logos do not move with it. So we're going to select our two logos here by holding Shift and selecting them both. Hold Shift again, select the coin, Control P, set parent to object, keep transform. Now if we move the coin around, the logos move with it. Let's come back to our camera, select our coin, press I, and add a rotation keyframe. Down here in the bottom right, let's set the last frame to 40. Okay, now let's move to frame 40. Sorry if my keystrokes are getting in the way here, but we're going to move to frame 40. We're going to come to the item tab up here. and we're going to change this Z value. The other way you can do this is just to press R, then Z, and then move it like this, either way. And I'm going to change this Z value to 360, and then I'm going to press I while my mouse hovers above this Z value. And then it's gone yellow. You can see it's added a keyframe. And now if we play, you can see it's moving around. Now there's some easing, so you can see that it is starting off slow and ending slow. We want it to just be a constant speed. So to do this, again, I'm going to open a new window by dragging this corner out. I'm going to select Graph Editor here. Now we've got our Z rotation here. We're just going to right click, Interpolation Mode, Linear. Now if we play, it looks almost right. You can see a slight pause. I'm just going to close this panel. You can see a slight pause at the end. All we need to do is remove the very last keyframe because the 40th keyframe and the first keyframe are the same frame, so we've got duplicate frame. So to fix this, we're going to remove the last frame, change it to 39. So now instead we have 39 frames, and if we play it, it looks much smoother now. Okay, so we have a result here. It looks a little bit glitchy because it's moving so fast and the lights are flickering over it as it spins. So I think we need to slow this down. So instead of 40 frames, let's go to 100 frames. Change the end to 100. And then obviously remove 1, so it's 99. Now let's see how this looks. Looks a little better. You can still see the lights kind of whizzing past. The other thing we can do on this main gold material is tweak this RGB curves. So if we go to a point in which there's lots of light like this, and we tweak our RGB curves to make it a bit more even here. That's a little better. The other thing we can do is come to our world tab again here and change the strength of the lighting down a little bit, maybe 0.8 or 0.7. Okay, that'll do. So now let's go to our output properties. Make sure all the information here is correct. Frame 1, end on frame 99. RGBA here because we want transparency. We're going to set to where we want our frames to render to. So I'm going to create a folder in here called export. And we're going to go in there and press accept. One last thing that I want to do before we render this out is I want to add some depth blur to our camera. So to do this, if we click camera, come down to the camera tab, enable depth of field, and tweak the f-stop until you start to see a little bit of blur. Let's choose focus on object to our cylinder object. So this will focus on the center of the coin, which means hopefully the nearer parts to us will be slightly blurred and the furthest away from us will also be slightly blurred. And now let's tweak our f-stop value until we get something that we like. Maybe something like this. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'm going to render this out by click render, render animation. And we're using Eevee, so it shouldn't take very long. So maybe go make a nice cuppa. Once that's done, if you open up the folder that you exported to, you should see all the frames in here. Now I'm going to take this into After Effects. You can take it into whichever video editor you prefer. So once I've got After Effects open, I'm going to press Ctrl I, navigate to the folder where all of my frames rendered out to, click 1, and it should give you the option here of PNG sequence if it detects that they're all named in a numbered format like this. Press import. So because we have transparency, we can drag this into a new composition and we can add whatever we want behind it. So for instance, we can add a solid, something like this. Maybe we could add a gradient to that. Maybe add a curves effect to your image sequence, and then you can change the brightness in here. You can change, the red, green, blue, the strength of these different things in there. You can do lots of good stuff to spice it up a bit. I hope you found this video useful. Please post any questions you have to the comment section. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss videos like this one. There'll be a link to my Patreon in the description where you can get exclusive downloads, resources, discount codes to plugins, and help support the channel. There will also be a link to my Discord animation community where you can share ideas and chat about animation. Happy animating and see you on the Flippity.